6. Is I join with my personal one,
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Bbgi Connect, the Black Business Growth Initiative Connect. Today, we wish to welcome you and want to thank you for taking the time of sharing this this hour with us. It is during the week, it is a busy time, and therefore we are all the more appreciative of the time that you're spending here with us. There are many other things that you could be doing, but you are definitely in the right place. My name is Sazi Ndwandwa, Isdugo Sam, which I think in English is my ancestral lineage name, something like that, right? Ukuze elikhulu ugedla umhlanga kwavela inkosi nenkosana inkonjane emnyama. I won't go into it further than that, but I'm not alone. It wouldn't be a Women's Month event if I didn't have women on the panel, right? And today I welcome two beautiful, successful, actually let me not paint the picture for them. Let me allow them to welcome themselves. We've got Kuhle Belu and we've got Malerato Goba. First, Kuhle, please introduce yourself to our live audience out there. Just tell us a bit about who you are, what you do, and anything else that you think might be of interest. Thank you.
Oh, hi, everybody. As Sazi has said, my name is Kuhle Belu. And I think the most important thing that I guess I could say to introduce myself is I regard myself as a homemaker. That's probably the best descriptor of the most important things to me. I'm married to Sandile, so to family on Dobe, I've got 2 little girls who mean the world to me. I am born of a family Belu or Klaba, and my sister's my best friend. We're a very close-knit family, so that homemaker extends to my family in a broader sense. In terms of what I do, I'm a consumer insights manager. I consider myself a strategist, and mostly my career has been with working and helping brands grow, and mostly within the FMCG space. So it's very difficult to explain what I do, but essentially we look at data and consumer behavior and try to look at trends and see white spaces where brands can grow. And that's what I do to earn my keep and make sure that I can do all the things that I like to do in my spare time. I also sit on the advisory board of a startup. It's a technology one, and it sort of fuses what I do in my day-to-day, which is looking at data and how we can get better data within Africa, more reliable data. So part of my job within that advisory board is to spec and design the products, what it should look like, and how we can service businesses to get more and better insights from our African partners. So that's me in a nutshell. I'm very happy to be here.
You're on mute.
Sazi, you're on mute.
Thank you so much, Kuhle. We really appreciate that. It's good to know you. And for the people out there to know who's going to be speaking to them today. Malerato, over to you.
Thanks, Sazi. Sure, how do I follow that one up? So I'm a 35-year-old woman, qualified chartered accountant with over 12 years corporate experience, both locally and internationally. I also have worked in multiple industries, largely in the private sector, spent a bit of time in the public sector. I currently hold a role of head of structured and commercial finance. So, I mean, as the role specifies, I do a lot of structuring deals, raising debt, raising equity for big capital projects, and of course, making sure that the business still make profits, because a lot of the contracts are with customers anyway over 10-year periods. And again, managing the risk, because we have customers across different industries with different risk profiles. So yeah, managing that profits and making sure that we're still commercially viable. And again, understanding that it is a long-term relationship that we build with our customers. Commercially as well, dealing, firsthand with, raising debt, raising equity, key stakeholders outside of the core of the business. And I think internally, probably my most important stakeholder would be our engineers that design the product. And I think this is the one role that I've held where I really needed to understand the product offering, because how do you build finance models when you actually don't understand exactly what the business does? So that's been really interesting for me. And I think just dabbling in the environmental sustainability space and renewables, that's been really, really fun, because that is an area of interest even in my personal space, where I do like seeing and I do like holding on to what the future holds, not just for myself, but the health and the benefits of the nation going forward, and the health really of all of us going forward and the generations to come. And it's really, really been interesting. I also sit on the board of Mood South Africa, which looks at youth development. And I chair the audit and risk committee there. So that's been quite a lot of fun as well, and very great opportunity to do that. And I look forward to sitting in more boards and just adding value. And then I think that's the criticalness of it all. It's just adding value everywhere I go, everything that I do in my personal capacity and my corporate life. That's me in a nutshell as well, cautious of time.
If that's the shell, that's a very big nut. Thank you very, very much. Guys, what I'm hearing here is a lot of service, a lot of value adding, a lot of future orientation, whether it's in your private capacities in your families, whether it's in the work that you do. It's forward looking, making sure you understand what your clients and what is important to your clients, and selling value. And I think that is wonderful. Thank you so, so much. Now, what we're going to do is that for those people, right, who are joining us for the first time, we're just going to share with you a little, what is the Black Business Growth Initiative about, right? Who are we? What do we do? And I'm not going to go into a lot. So what the Black Business Growth Initiative is, it is a community of like-minded people that seeks to see its Black members grow in every aspect of their lives, right? So what we mean by, by that, when we look at the values and the objectives that bind us together, we're really talking about, number one, unity and collaboration. And that says that, as Black people, we need to unite as professionals in the workplace, unite in terms of sharing knowledge and expertise, unite and collaborate in terms of the businesses that we do, and, support each other in really practical and tangible ways. If I have a business, you have a business, let's look at collaboration as a first point before we look at competition, right? There is more than enough for everyone. We talk about excellence in the sense that just because, or in fact, even more so because, it is a Black person supporting a Black person, we demand excellence of ourselves, but excellence in the idea of allowing ourselves to be developmental, always showing improvement and progress, not really looking at perfection, but showing that if there are mistakes, we give each other feedback and we learn from those experiences and getting better and better and better and better, right? We're talking about growth, and that growth, we say continuous, balanced growth in every aspect of your life, right? We don't want situations where you build this empire in terms of business, but it costs you your marriage, your life, your children, and basically your health. But it's balanced growth in every aspect of your life that is important to you to function as a human being and as a member of our community and as a member of society in general. We're talking about good intention. And what we mean by that is that, we have good intent towards one another. That is a matter of integrity. That is a matter of, honoring our commitments to each other. That is a matter of being able to be happy for each other's successes and progress in life, And last but not least, we talk about personal responsibility. And this says that no matter what anyone does to you or what they did to you that has caused you to be in a situation that you feel is not something that you like, you still have the responsibility for accounting for your life, for fixing your own situation. Because the person who did that, they do not have as vested an interest to come and make sure that that thing is fixed and rectified. So it's more about coming up with solutions rather than just stopping at identifying the problems and the complaints. It's also about doing things rather than just talking. And, on that point of doing things and making progress on a continuous basis, this is what we're looking at, right? We're showing our progress and our growth as the community. And this is our social media platforms, right? So in terms of Facebook, you will see, right? In July 2020, we were not really featuring. January 2021, we had 1,230 followers. And as of June 2021, we had 1,400 followers, right? And that, as I understand, is even higher. So we appreciate the support. Keep inviting people, keep having people coming over and also being part of the community. On LinkedIn, you'll see that there hasn't been as much growth, but it is better than where we are. That was really the neglected platform from our side, but we've got people who are helping us there to get that, going. Instagram, you'll see gradually we are moving there as well. And I think to some extent, that might be also a generational thing, right? Facebook is the one we focus on, but again, we are seeing that 189, 214. So keep following, keep inviting, keep tagging, whatever is done. And then on YouTube, we are currently at 44. Even that one is showing an upward trend, okay? So that's just to give feedback to the community to say, guys, we're not just sitting here and having events and having talk shops and, nothing is happening. This is part of the journey that we're talking about. We're growing this community. And this community is only growing through us as individuals, inviting other people who will get value from this. Okay, this picture is not coming through too clear. But what we are showing here is, you'll remember in June, we launched our website and we said, no, we're still just piloting it. But those people who are interested in coming to pilot with us and just, having practical examples of, getting this website up and running, where we're gonna have businesses and business owners who are Black and part of the community coming in here and registering their businesses, and then other people coming in as customers to come and support those Black businesses. And the idea was, we're saying, if you look at everything that is around you, just take a moment to sit wherever you are watching from, to look around you. You've got a device, whether it's a laptop or a tablet or a phone. Just think about where in all those components, in all that value chain, is the Black equity. If anything, in many of these things, Black contribution is mostly being part of the labor, not equity, which is where the wealth goes, right? The desk that you are sitting on, the bookshelf behind you, Malerato, right? The book that I'm holding right here, right? Simple book, everything, right? The chair you're sitting on, the furniture, from the plantation to cutting the wood, to treating the wood, to making the furniture, to transporting the furniture, to taking it to the retailer, to getting it to your home, right? How much Black equity is there? And we're saying that if you are currently, of every 100 Rand that you have, maybe 1 Rand or 5 Rands goes towards Black equity. If we can make it a personal responsibility to try and say, let me increase that month to month, maybe spend 6 Rand, maybe spend 7% of mine and 10% and 20%, right, of my money on Black businesses, so that we can circulate this income. And all we're showing there is the economy that we have created so far, just from the pilot businesses. I think we've got about 20 stores on the platform at this point. And you'll see that, you know, in March, we traded about, you know, what is that, 1,000. And then it went up a bit in April, June, it came down, you know, and so forth and so forth. And I think the highest we've gone is about 4,000 in 1 month. So, you know, that's just an example of saying, you know, that's about 4 or 5 people, you know, buying on this platform. And then already that's the difference we're making, you know, in excess of about 15,000 overall in these past few months since we launched this thing. So I think it's exciting. It's still the beginning. And again, when we talk about excellence as the Black business growth, we talk about growth, we're saying as long as our trajectory is going this way, it's all good. Okay, so I'm going to stop there in terms of the introduction. We're going to get to the discussions. And what I'm going to do, again, I'm going to appeal to everyone who's watching, maybe even us on the panel who, you know, just let's take 30 seconds to just share. I think there's something called a watch party, right? Somewhere on these platforms, right? Start a watch party, invite your friends, put on your WhatsApp status, and we're going to have ourselves a wonderful, wonderful discussion with these ladies. We're just going to have a conversation. I'm going to ask some questions, and they're going to respond. And what's really wonderful is that you can comment on Facebook, you can comment on YouTube. I think Facebook is really the main one that would suggest people go to. You don't have to have an account. So even people who are not on Facebook, you know, get that link, send it to them. They can also join. Guys, send your comments. We're going to be reading them later on, whether it's a comment, whether it's a question, you know, whether it's your own response, because we are all about different perspectives. There's no right, there's no wrong, there's no judgment. It's us just exploring and gaining awareness around some of these things. Okay, 30 seconds. We're going to pause. Kuhle, Malerato, heads down. Let's invite.
Sure.
Okay. First question. Now, ladies, I'm not going to point at anyone. Feel free to volunteer. I think, you know, to kick off, it's good to get the context of this conversation. We are talking about Women's Month. We are talking about, you know, the role of women and how things are moving for South Africa. And we are, you know, looking at from a BBGI perspective, as always. So what has been the place of women in business and society, and how do you feel about this? Just as a starting question. Kuhle, maybe go for it.
Yeah, it's such a tough one, hey, because it's like you said, we always measure growth, right? So you can't be too negative if things are going and shifting in the right direction. So I do want to acknowledge that things are moving in the right direction. But it feels like a lot of times, whether in society or in the workspaces, women are doing all of the work and not really reaping all of the benefits that, you know, we can. So we're doing double time, trying to prove ourselves and sort of straddling two different sides of the coin and still coming up short. And I think even in a corporate space, you do see a lot of women, even smart, with a lot of experience, sort of being given support roles and relegated to maybe less strategic portfolios. And we're constantly having to compete for a voice in spaces that aren't necessarily designed for us. So you can do all of the work, you can get all of the coaching, you can do all of the work to support yourself in trying to move ahead. But I don't think this world was actually designed it doesn't feel like this world was designed for us moving forward and us taking leadership positions and having like a voice. And I think the fact that Women's Month is still a thing speaks to that point, right? The fact that we still have to have conversations around our place in the world and how we can change it is testament to that fact. But I don't, yeah, Malerato, I don't know if you've got anything to add.
Malerato, just unmute there quickly.
Oh, there we go. My apologies. So it definitely has improved. I think we do see a lot more women in the managerial roles, but the problem is the fact that we're not seeing that same penetration and concentration at your senior levels as well. And that's what we need to still strive and definitely improve on getting there. And it's something that, you know, I always have to tell myself, even because that's where the conversation starts. I always have to tell myself that, I mean, I believe I have the same right as every man in any boardroom, in any meeting, and in every role. I have the same right. But yes, in terms of a place, are we occupying that space? And no, I don't believe we are. But it's a continuous fight that we have to fight. And I think the problem is as well, what are we doing to allow that space to be opened up? Is it just a woman thing? Is it just a man thing? Or is it men that are restricting? Where does the restriction come from? And that's where we need to ask the why and how can we break the barrier? Because let's be honest, some of it is ignorance, some of it is arrogance. And both of those things need to be tackled differently. But do we have a place? Yes. Do we hold a place? Yes. And we just need to charge forward and continue in having the right conversations. And I think it's nice to also know, I mean, I have male friends that I know are joining in and listening to this. So at least we kind of then hoping that even their conversations as well with their male counterparts get influenced by such conversations. And even the females alike, same thing. It's nothing that just should stop now in the month of August, but it should be a continued conversation throughout the times and even when we're not watching.
Wow, that's amazing. And I like that last point that you made. Say it's not a 9-month of the calendar situation, but it's a 12 months, the whole journey around the sun. It should be a continuous thing, that we have all the time. Now, here's a question I think to follow up on that as well, Some people may feel that, we want to attain balance, right? And some people might say, and this is something I've heard, right? Some people say, well, you know what, it seems like historically, and that's what you guys are saying, right? We had balance on this side. Our society was patriarchal. It was all about men. And I saw a meme that says, being a Black woman in South Africa is being Black and then being a woman, so you get it twice, you understand? But some people then come and say, well, we were overbalanced this side, but it might appear that now if this is, equity and equality and balance and what we would like, it might seem like now we've crossed over, where now in 20 years' time, the boy child might be neglected and they might start feeling like they don't have a place in the world. You understand? Now, how would you respond to that question?
So look, and I think maybe that's where the playing fields need to start at, in terms of when we look at the boy child and we look at the female or the girl against boy kind of conversation. And firstly, understand that all of these conversations are happening because the playing fields are not the same. Let's just be frank. And that's why such conversations are happening. I think similarly to the whole Black Lives Matter, all lives matter, we're not saying that the boy child doesn't matter. All we're saying is that the playing field needs to be equalized. In terms of, are we over now the line mark? I don't have the data to support that. All I can tell you is my experiences and what I know other women have experienced in my current lifetime, that we are not there yet. And that's all we're asking for, is we're asking for fair play. And I can tell you as a woman, it's a matter of, I would not even also encourage, be it another colleague or myself, to appoint a woman just because she's a woman. That's not what I'm supporting. I support development of a woman to be qualified for that role. I support a woman who should get the role to get the role. So in terms of a boy child feeling neglected, I don't support that at all in terms of a boy child being neglected. So it's a pity that, yes, I'm sure there are certain situations that are foreseen to be that way, but it definitely shouldn't be the case. It's just an equality measure to say, let's bring both of them on a similar playing field and let's make a fair choice based on that. So how we can probably then contribute, there's nothing wrong under circumstances where maybe the boy child or maybe someone is seeing that a boy child is neglected, then to play in that role, make sure that they are not neglected, have opportunities that create for that neglect not to exist or not to be seen. So that's actually an opportunity, ding, 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 you know? So somebody needs to then come in and play that role where they do see neglect, because no neglect should be acceptable at all. Kuhle?
Kuhle, unmute yourself quickly. Your thoughts?
I think I agree with you, and it's not to sort of recreate the thing that we're trying to course correct, right? So that would make the effort null and void. And I think you can't focus on the one without, you know, and leaving the other side of the coin not taken care of. And I think if we look at this within the context of racism as an example, you can't fix one side and not talk to the broader. For example, if you say let's empower Black people will go nowhere if the conversation is only, or the focus is only on Black people, and you're not talking to white people and how they contribute and how we can live cohesively together while making sure that we sort of correct the imbalances that exists. So I think, yeah, I totally agree with you, and it's not one or the other, and it's looking at it holistically. We're not living in a vacuum where we have all these ideals that we're trying to reach without considering the impact on how we move forward on our boy children and the males that live with us in the society, and those shifts will impact them. So it's not just a pure focus on the one and neglecting the other.
And what I'm hearing you guys saying is that, you know, if one is here and one is here, and you want to bring this one to an equal level, you know, you don't want to do that by pulling this one down. You want to do it by developing and uplifting this one.
Correct.
Oh, wonderful. No, I hear you.
It's not a zero-sum game. Like the one gain is not a loss to someone else. And I think there's so many examples where we can learn from that historically as we try to close that gender gap.
Okay. And on that point of closing the gender gap, you know, as Africans, we come from a cultural tradition that has been seen to be patriarchal, right? So how do we balance and navigate, you know, the change towards women being empowered with these traditional roots, you know, that maybe allocate women certain statuses, certain roles? How do you balance that? You know, there's transformation on the side, but there's also a traditional and the cultural side of it, which is seen to be patriarchal. Your thoughts on that? Okay, unmute. Malerato, go for it.
So I was actually saying I'll allow Kuhle to start, but I think it's on this one, I've definitely, yeah, hey, so being a Zulu woman, you know, being Black, and there are those statuses, but I don't know, I don't want to wear them, you know, and I've seen, yes, we've seen it. We can't be living a lie and saying it doesn't exist. But I've also watched women that are married. I'm not yet married. I don't have kids as yet, but I have seen women who are married, who are running successful businesses, who are holding significant roles in the corporate space, that are doing it. Yes, they do say that it's not easy, but they do it. And so I choose to latch on that, to say that it is possible to still hold the role and still be able to, you know, to deliver results and do good and do great in the corporate space. But with it also not being so easy to live behind that stigma, I don't know, it's just one that I'm wanting not to own. I don't know, I just want to disassociate myself from the whole you know, you have to be, your husband would expect you to cook every day, because that's just not what I want. And I also do know that there are guys who don't like that, who don't necessarily want a woman, you know, to be in the kitchen all the time. They actually want a partner to hold the house and to hold the fort. So there's someone out there, and I think we can strike that balance in life, and it's life's choices, really. But for me, it's one that it's a good question, but I don't think I have the best of answer for it. But I'm doing the best that I can in the way that I'm living right now, and it's working for me.
Malerato, tell me if I'm hearing you right? I hear you saying that, well, I'm not yet married. If I chose someone, right, from a marital context, if I chose someone, then it would probably be someone who would be able to, you know, to come on board in terms of this change. You understand?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
At this point, yes. That would probably be the...
Kuhle, you're already in.
Look, I'm in, and it's a tough one, because I think you meet people and you sort of nyajola in isolation of the family and the structures that support the institution of marriage, and you sort of build a life that you actually share with a broader family. So it's one of those things where there's some control that you can have within the context of your nuclear family, you and your partner, your kids, but there's also the context of in-laws, extended families, and all of that. And it's not as easy. The ideals that you as a couple can hold. So you're solid, you're aligned, you are here, but you still, I mean, I still go back home to Makoti, and it's a balance. It's a balance, and it's not an easy one, and it does get easier with time, but it also involves a little bit of pushing and standing on your ground and having to overly communicate where you guys are as the unit and how you need your family to support that. So as much as we're moving on as a society, there are things that are culturally and structurally there that reinforce, roles, very much gendered roles. And for me, it's how to balance that. And I can't lie and say it's easy. We're still negotiating, how do we handle certain things. And I think for me, what's been the savior is that we get alignment at home within the nuclear family. But in the real world out there, it's wild. And we have to code switch. So at home, I have a voice. I can say and do what I want. But in other spaces, I literally have zero voice. And I guess the expectation is that you are seen and not heard. And it's a bit tough, having to do that. And I don't think it happens only within the personal life, but I think I struggle, continue to still struggle this day as a female, having to put on a when am I firm, versus when do I sort of give space for conversation to happen. So even within the work context, I still get lots of coaching. I come across struggles, and whether it's specific stakeholders or I'm in a new space, I still spend a lot of money and time, getting myself in the right frame of mind to be able to switch and dial into this part of Kuhle. So the one that speaks up, that's firm and assertive, versus Kuhle at home over December was possibly quieter and, so it's a balance. It's a balance.
Yeah, it's an interesting one.
And I think, Sazi, before we move on, code switching is possibly one of those things that, as Black people, we understand code switching from a racial perspective. It's even double that for women who are, carving spaces for themselves within corporate and career-wise, who also maybe are married or in relationships where the expectations in terms of how they show up is different.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the things, and I think I mentioned it, when we were talking earlier, and, we're just having an honest conversation, right? Is one of the things that I often imagine in my mind and say, wow, there's a minister of, of this and this lady, when she, she commands all this power. When she gets home, she's got a husband. What happens? Does she go and cook? Or is that something that is important? Is it something that, may be a problem at some point? So those are some of the things that I'm curious about, right? Because each home is different. And we know that sometimes from a lot of research that in marriage, in relationships, the finances, there's different power dynamics that play, right? And now situations where, for instance, let's say this minister is earning much, much more money, is more known, better known, attends meetings up until whatever time, or is an executive where you travel, you work overtime, and there's this husband sitting at home now, and they're still within the cultural context. What are some of the things that you think might come there from that situation? And when you respond to these things, it might be your own personal experience, or it might be situations that you come across, just, from whatever sources you want to draw from. Any thoughts on that question or that perspective? Malerato, you on mute? Sorry, I keep muting you because, I want the speaker to be, the one who's here. So if you're not muted every time you make a sound. So go for it.
All right. No, I think just pertaining to, I'm getting feedback. Okay. So just pertaining to the point that you've just made around, let's use the example of the woman then getting an opportunity. But just to latch on to the whole thing around conversation. And I think before you even got into that relationship, I think there's some basic values that you would have aligned on anyway, in terms of, would it be something that we'd see ourselves together now, going abroad, living abroad? And also you're the one that also knows your partner in terms of what are their future goals or expectations or desires? Do they potentially see themselves living outside of the country or things like that? So those are thoughts. I mean, if I were to get an offer like that, for example, the first thing that would probably come to mind before I either accept would be the thought of what do I think he would think? What do I think he would ask? So already I'd have those preconceived thoughts. But in then having the conversation with them, of course, you have to talk as well. I mean, why be in a relationship if you can't talk, right? But you'll put it forth, I think, already with a level of preconceivedness, because you know your person, you have an idea of what their desires are and goals are as well. But in terms of, does it immediately mean when he gets an opportunity that we would immediately then pack up and leave the country? Absolutely not. I don't think so. And I think surely I'd like to believe that he would have gotten into the relationship with the type of person that, call it, I am, having then understood the type of person that I am, and surely we're working on this together. So I think it's different in every relationship. But of course, it's the conversation. It really is the conversation and the values that your relationship is built on. And then you build from there.
Kuhle, what do you want to add? And Malerato, what I'm hearing is talk, and study the person before you get into it.
Yes.
Kuhle, you into it.
I think the reality of it, some of the things you actually, I mean, in theory, we all talk about the things that are important and how we live with each other, and we sort of get an understanding of how we see the world, and we know what would be attractive to both of us, career-wise and our ambitions, etc. But I think sometimes there's a lot of stuff that's unsaid, or you don't explicitly talk about it, and those are that's actually the problems where I'll make an example with myself. I was so obsessed when I got pregnant and had kids around making sure that I'm cooking the food, I'm blending the vegetables and doing the health thing. And I was used to cooking. I used to love cooking, so I cook for my husband. And it threw me off every time I had a meeting that ran late. There was traffic on the N1. Remember those days? So it's no one else had said, Kuhle, I expect you to cook, or he actually doesn't care. Like, he's very self-sufficient, but I had it in my mind that I'd wanted to cook my kids the food, be there to cook for my husband and play that mom role because it's important to me. So I think it's not always around communication, around expectations. Sometimes it's self-imposed. And those are the things that actually cause niggles. And when you actually have the conversation, there was no real need for anyone to panic or stress. You just had to do a little bit of reflection yourself to see that you're the one that's actually imposing all of these things on you. So I have to be fair with that, especially within the context of me being a woman with a career that I really value, but also valuing being a homemaker and wanting to play that role. So I want both, but it doesn't always happen that way. And I think that's when you need to be real with yourself to say, what can I do and what works for us both?
Those are two very wonderful perspectives. One that says, you know what, we have to communicate for the things that come from the outside in terms of my partner or my spouse. But the other one that says, well, some of these things are expectations that I have on myself, and it's up to me to start reflecting and thinking about it and seeing how I can now juggle these, I guess, different identities and what I aspire to be and what I want to be real in my life in terms of how I show up. That's wonderful. Now, what I'm going to do quickly, I had a follow-up question, but I'm aware of time. Uzola is in the meeting. I think he's got some comments, questions from our audience. Zola, please unmute and show your video. Over to you.
Sure, thanks. For some reason, I cannot start my video because the host has stopped it, which is Sazi hosted. But nonetheless, a few questions and comments. I think a comment yokuqala sifumene kuSisilungelwa Nyamani. Uthi yena, it is just so tiring that we have to be aggressive to make those moves and be forceful. I think she was talking to Ibo Mrs. Malerato that women really at times they have to fight for them to acknowledge that they're present and for their voices to be heard. So if you comment apho ba bona as abantu abangomama or sisi, they get tired at times when they have to be aggressive to make those moves and be forceful just to have equality, so to say. So I think it's a comment on what the panelists were addressing at the time. And enye comment esifumana ku Lloyd Mfazwe uthi yena, great initiative. We can only grow from here by Fluke or something else. I had a meeting with Miss Smart. Guys, how do I tap into your skills? As a feminist, my focus is on women and I may need your assistance. So I've opened up to Yena and people like him on the chat section that want to reach out to us to say, guys, please drop us an inbox. We'll reply with our email. We can take it from there. So those are the ones that we have. The rest is Nazo, is people saying, thank you guys for the conversation. It's exciting. I'm excited. We can't wait for the panelists or issue Indo. Some are saying, Abanya just requesting a website to, a link to the website. So that will be all for now. Thank you.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Any quick responses to those comments, questions, ladies? Just 1 minute. 1 minute. Kuhle?
Yeah, again, I think for me, what keeps coming back is the code switching. So the structures in business and in society aren't designed for us to thrive and flourish and do both, work and be homemakers. So it almost even in corporate, Ulungi, her comment, and I know exactly what she's talking about, where you have to dial up more than what you're comfortable doing in order to be heard. And those are the challenges where I think, guys, if you can just be aware that we're working in spaces where we're coming in, we have to step into codes in order not only to do our job, which we know we can, but to almost be heard quickly and effectively. And it's actually tiring and exhausting to always be dialing up and always be having to switch codes, where I think what males aren't aware is that spaces are designed for you guys. Now we're thinking of a lot of things, balancing lots of things, and more often than not, you're the youngest in the room, you're the only female, you're the only Black female. So there's also pressure to not misrepresent those that you're seen to represent, and we don't ask to represent anyone, but that's the reality as Pilagoy.
100%. I think even for me, from what you've just said, it's just a solid reminder as well of the fact that now those that have fought and climbed up, they must not forget that even to get up there, others have fought on their behalf as well. So that we need to continue that same culture of how then do we ensure that the ladder is strong enough, hold it up at the top, so that the others in the race can then climb up. Because I think that's why, or that's where we can maybe feel less of a burden of fighting. Otherwise, we'll continue fighting if those then at the top don't, change the narrative from above. Otherwise, yes, we will get tired in the continued fighting. And that's exactly what's happening. It's the continued fight. But once everybody understands, including the male and the female alike, then I think it would be a situation where we can say potentially, yes, we've gotten a decent level of a playing field. But yeah, at the moment, we will continue fighting. And that's what we'll need to do. But otherwise, I'm just saying, lest we forget, once you're up top, and as you continue growing, just don't forget that there are others that need to climb up the same very ladder.
Oh, thank you so much. That's a very sobering message, And I'm torn because you guys have mentioned, two things which I'd like to follow up on. And, Malerato, you're talking about saying, you know what, the way you do your things now, it actually sets and paves the way for people coming behind you. It's not just about you, but how you handle the space, creates more room for others, or it closes up. And let me follow up first with what Kuhle said, and I think this is just raising our awareness. You mentioned one of the things that as men, we might not be aware of, right? You are here in front of us every day in the work environment, but many people wouldn't be aware of what you're saying, right? Are there any other things that, you see, behaviors, little things, little customs, little setups in the environment that you're like, you know what, they seem like normal everyday things, but they are an indication that we've still got some work to do up here, from an equality perspective?
It's little things, and it's difficult to think off the top of my head, but even if I think like we have workshops, say 4-day workshops in a week, where we're coming in at 7:30, we're knocking off at 7 in the evening. So it's already a 12-hour day. We're having working lunches, and this has happened to me where I was breastfeeding. So it becomes really awkward if I have to be the one person that says, sorry, I actually can't do a working, I can't work through lunch. Can I? And again, it singles me out. It others me from everybody else where, we're all there, but I can't sit for 12 hours. Or people like, I want to rush home and cook. But now we've had the meetings. Now it's dinner and it's drinks after the dinner. And it becomes an emotionally you're torn because the rest of the people don't have to think about putting the kids to bed. They're not primary, or their wives don't work. So it's just, again, I keep going back to the structures aren't inclusive and aren't designed to give people easy options. Yes, you can leave, but best believe tomorrow you would have missed out on something that may or may not be important for your career growth, or there might be conversations that you're missing. So I think we're constantly balancing, and no one knows even the stuff that we're balancing, like little things like that, where you've just had someone come back from maternity. Chances are they're breastfeeding, so they can't sit for 10 hours without a break to express or just get a break.
And Malerato, any examples from your side? I mean, that's quite, empowering to know, right? And yeah, especially if you're in a team and someone's just come back, to think around those things. Malerato, any examples on your side?
Yeah, and I mean, just to say to that, the one thing is, it's so crucial to kind of go, okay, be the hand as much as, we need to kind of step aside and allow that woman as well to continue, or those women, because I don't also want to sound more singling out. But those are the things I think definitely in corporate, we definitely need to think a lot more about and voice the voice of saying, and state it to say that, but this is clearly not working, it's unfair and it's unjust. But I just think, I mean, when was it? I think it was a couple of months ago, I read an article that actually said, I mean, as part of the abstract, I mean, I can't remember who wrote the article, but I read it, and part of the abstract was, I'm sure we've all heard the term that women are not confident. And I'm like, whoa, I've never heard that. And I'm a woman. And they speak so broadly, and it becomes a term that gets labeled on women in an article in a paper that was published from a very distinguished university. So you're asking yourself, are these really terms? Because I mean, you'd also believe that this is data collected from somewhere. So clearly these are a group of people somewhere that say these things, that women are not confident, that women are not willing to negotiate as much as men do, that women are not willing to take risks. And I mean, reading just that abstract, I was like, I am none of that. I am probably one of the most outspoken people. You know, I'm none of that, which means we cannot do this clustering. We really need to look at the circumstances, and we need to look at what's facing us, be it as a team or be it as a corporate team, whatever the case may be, and then base decisions around that. So we'll continue voicing the fact that no, this is not going to work because we have team members that are breastfeeding. And I mean, I've managed teams where it's been both males and females, and you have to consider that and allow the opportunity for them to voice such things, to say, this is not going to work for me because of 1, 2, 3. So again, it's that wall and that plastering that also just needs to be created to allow team members to be able to voice such. Because for me, I'd feel like a bad leader if a team member has felt that they couldn't raise such matters of concern to me. Wow. And I think that's why I'm saying that there's a role that each and every one of us play, be it you're a woman. And because sometimes people would think, as a woman without children, I might not understand. Of course I understand. I was a child also raised, and as a woman, of course I understand. So I think those are the things we just need to be much more aware and allow the opportunity to raise comments.
Guys, this hour is not enough. Yo, I've got so many questions firing in my head, but Zola's got his hand up. So Zola, unmute yourself, show us your camera. Hopefully I've fixed the stuff now and people can see you.
Masithembe manibulise kuwo umuntu okhoyo unifakile this time chair we session. Quick session questions to panelists here too. One is from Usis Neo Uti. Question for both ladies. What would you tell your younger self of the lessons you've learned thus far? The lessons are the lessons where you perhaps were overly critical of yourself and may have hindered you from fully blooming at that particular stage. So that's a question to both the ladies. And Kubeko Noputabo, Uti, awesome conversation. Many things we can learn as men to even the playing fields and level things up. And then ezinye zikhona nazo ziningi kosisikhule bayabulela kakhulu for introducing them to this space. Looking forward to catching up offline and learn more about it. So those are the questions we have thus far.
Thank you so much, Zola. Guys, 1 minute each quickly to respond to that question. Say, you're talking to your younger self. What do you say? What are some of the questions, perhaps where you might have been too harsh on yourself, whatever the case? Go.
Okay. Kuhle? Oh, okay. So, all right. I think for me, I actually touched on it slightly already, was definitely more around confidence. I think in a very earlier stage of my life, I think there were certain areas, and I'll take it back to university. In university, you know, there was a group, I don't know if you remember the stat. I mean, if you look at people studying BCom accounting, and there was quite a great number of us in our first year, but then you'd have people kind of go, you know, half of that class is going to fail before you guys even reach, you know, honors year or whatever the case may be. But there were definitely times where, because you'd be hearing all of this information and people telling you, people generally don't succeed, then even when people ask you, you don't confidently say, this is actually what I'm studying. You actually say some other degree so that so that you don't get that negative feedback. But then I was like, hold on, this is what I want to do. And this is what I think for probably a good year, only when I got to second year did I really say, this is actually what I'm doing. And I think those little niches and those little things that people say, negativity that comes on the outside, does impact our decisions and how confident we are with what we're doing. And from that point, I was like, no, this is what I'm doing and this is why I'm doing it. And that I've carried on with my life right throughout. So that's the one thing that pops up in mind, but I'm sure there are a lot more. I'll give it to you, Kuhle.
I think similar. I think I always had the pressure of perfection. So because I'm sort of OC and I always felt like every chance I got was, I had to make the best of it. There was a lot of pressure, like to get things right and to do things right. And it's something that still stays with me. So I haven't gotten over it completely, hence still the coaching, etc. But just to relax, like perfection is not the end goal. And if I look at people who have been so brazen in giving half-baked ideas in corporate situations and being taken seriously, then it almost gives me permission to say, babes, like, you've got really good ideas. They don't have to be perfect. Way worse ideas have gotten through the funnel and gate processes. So just trust yourself. It doesn't have to be perfect. People can still build. You don't have to own the whole idea. I mean, the whole process from idea to
finish,
to the end, to finish. Is good enough to give your point of view. Your point of view matters. It's different, and actually different is good and is valued. And also just to listen to the feedback that I'm getting, because I think sometimes you're getting the positive feedback, but somehow in your mind you just like, or maybe no, don't think it. Say thank you and keep it.
Guys, we have 4 minutes to go, and I think I'll just ask 1 minute each, right? One last question, and I think it links to something we talked about already. And rather than asking it from a negative perspective, I think I'll ask it in addition to the things that you've mentioned already, what are some of the things that you would say would help and would advance the success, the higher success and more success in terms of numbers of women in the workplace and society?
What would increase or advance the numbers and progression, I guess?
The negative question is what holds that back? What holds back the success of women, but what can therefore increase the success of women?
Yeah, so I think there's different levels to it. So first of all, it's us as women. Second of all, it's men. Third of all, it's the individual. I do think sometimes we do become our own stumbling blocks, but that's of course an individual journey that one needs to travel. But secondly, there's the blockage as well can very well be women and men alike who are ignorant and arrogant of what it is that women empowerment is trying to do, fairness, what it is trying to actually do. So that's where the stigma is, and that's where we need to break it. And that's why I said even earlier, from an arrogance and ignorance perspective, we then need to separate the two issues. And that's why we should never be afraid of asking the question, why? So if it is an opportunity that was granted to you, or you had an opportunity at the door, and maybe it was taken away from you as a businesswoman, as a woman trying to, get the job, ask the question why. And the answer is in the why, because then you either direct your response to say, okay, I can clearly see either there's a level of arrogance or ignorance. How do I then communicate my point to say that actually I am capable? Because till today, I've never seen an advert that says we only want a woman without a child or things like that. So that shouldn't be a matter of what role you get and what opportunity you have. So then let's speak on experience, let's speak on capability, and let's speak on capacity. And that's where the conversation should be.
Kuhle, closing from your side to the same question.
Yeah, I think for me, it's about raising the stakes and understanding that diversity is better. I think sometimes it's not even about female, male, all of it. If you're coming from the stance where you're saying let's embrace difference and what different people and different personalities and different genders, races bring to the table, then already I think we're winning, because all of the things that either are not true and have been said about women, those start to fall away, and you're actually looking for the positives and the things that people can bring to the table. So if you're looking at a place that's not transformed, how does the next person actually make us win by bringing in a different voice. So I think it's just valuing the difference that different voices can play. And I think one of the things that we didn't actually touch on was age. I think a lot of the issues come with women empowerment. A lot of the women that are getting empowered are younger. So we're finding ourselves in spaces where we're young, we're female, dealing with older, possibly white males, and that dynamic that's a dynamic on its own. So not only is gender, but there's also a very big age thing that sometimes doesn't get discussed, but it actually does play a role, because there's Malerato, 35 years old, her equivalents are like 50 something, and those become barriers that aren't spoken about. So yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much, ladies. I really, really appreciate your time. For the people who are joining us, our audience out there, thank you as well for sticking with us up till now. Thank you for the comments, for the questions, and keep them coming. And even after, this event, keep sharing the videos, keep watching the videos. And what's happening now, which is wonderful, because the Black Business Growth Initiative has been running since March of 2019, is that we're beginning to have these videos so that our themes are beginning to recur. So, you might already have the opportunity to look at our video that we did last year for our women's event. And one of the things that came up there was to say, guys, why is it only a women panel? Just because it's Women's Month, we talk about women's issues. We don't want men to withdraw. We want you to be part of the journey. That's why you see me here, right? So we respond to these things, and it's part of the learnings that we do, and that we get. And I think in summary to what I got from today, some of the things is, really looking at, creating a sense of equality, whether not really, neglecting one side, whether it's the male child, but really looking at equality and finding that balance. And also for, what creates all these issues is just an awareness, removing some of the ignorance. And I think already we managed to do that. And this video, because it will always be out there, it's something that you can refer other people to as well. Also stepping away from the arrogance, but really identifying to say, well, it's not really about right and wrong, it's just about different and same, right? Do you be honest with yourself? Do you want to be surrounded only by people who are like you, or do you really understand the importance of diversity, especially if you're a leader in an environment, right? Whether it's age, whether it's gender, whether it's race, whatever the case may be, you understand? I think the other one is, around communication, to say, well, let's make sure that we clarify expectations in relationships at work, to say, what is your expectation before we get into this thing? If we're in this thing and maybe we missed that conversation, let's have that conversation as honestly and as persistently as possible, right? And I think that again says, don't keep quiet if you don't feel things are right, whether it's in the home front, or whether it's at work, right? If something happens, if you are there as a woman or as someone who can see, and someone else is, because of their situation, whether it's maternity leave, whatever, and it's something that because of their diversity, whether it's a woman, race, age, ability, disability, whatever the case, if you can see that happening, you speak up as well, so that that person is not the only one saying, excuse me, this doesn't work for me, and therefore they're feeling isolated. If they leave, they say, well, cheers, and that is something that therefore they can miss out on something that might limit their careers, whatever the case may be. Okay, so for me, those are nice lessons that I've got. And I think, talking outside in terms of the communication, but also introspecting and saying and reflecting and saying, well, where does this expectation come from? If I've got some of the challenges, am I expecting perfection of myself? Am I being harsh on myself? Or, can I just let some things go? You understand? I just understand that. But from my side, ladies and gentlemen, ladies who are here on the panel, thank you so much. Do expect in September, it's Heritage Month. It's very important. The ladies in their opening addresses, one of the things that I noted throughout this conversation, in fact, was that they are not just thinking about now, they are thinking about the future. How I handle things now also opens up or closes things up for the women who are to come, right? And that's the same thing we talk about with the Black Business Growth Initiative. But that is a theme for Heritage Month, because heritage is inheritance, is legacy, it's what we leave, by what we do today for future generations. I look forward to seeing you then. I shared with you the numbers in terms of our community on social media. I shared with you some of the numbers in terms of our community and the economy that we've started to generate from that pilot website, bbgi.co.za. There's an app as well, Black Business Growth Initiative. You can go and check it out. It's there, okay? It's a pilot. It's a pilot. Be easy with us. But if you're a supplier, right now we're calling out to suppliers. We say our first 50 suppliers, the first annual subscription, the top tier subscription is on us. You come in, you trade, and then you ask for a small commission so that we can sustain this Black Business Growth Initiative, because what we are driving as a BBGI is that we are the heroes that we're waiting for. We are the change that South Africa needs. This money that is, circulating, we need to bring it back so that we can start funding our own things and take personal responsibility and not wait for someone out there to come and help us, but to use the money that's already in our pockets that we are going to spend anyway. And we start actually using it to drive and to grow this thing. So I look forward to seeing you. Those people who want to go there, go to the website, to the marketplace. There's a thing that you'll see, sign up as a supplier. You sign up there, put your stuff, then we're going to trigger you with an email where you're going to email us your logos, your catalogs, your price lists, everything. From my side, thank you very much. Until next time, enjoy your evening. It's not a 1 month thing, it's a 12-month thing. Remember that. Doesn't stop today, it becomes a mindset. I hope we've managed to impact some people. I hope we've managed to open up some minds. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you very much.
Smile and say bye, we're on TV.
Bye. Bye.